In its current state, the app has a list that displays strings, but you can customize the appearance of the list by creating a custom item layout and then a Java class that uses that layout. I'm working in a version of my project now called Custom List Item, and I'll start by creating a new layout that's specifically designed to display a flower image and a text value. I'll go to my Layout folder under Resources, and I'll create a new Android XML file. I'll name this item_flower. The convention is that layouts that are for activities start with activity, and layouts that are for items start with item. For the root element, I'll select Relative Layout, and then click Finish. The relative layout's width will match the parent, that is, its containing view, but then I'll adjust the height to wrap the content, so that the height of this layout matches whatever image and text view I add to it. Next, I'll add an image view. I'll go to the graphical layout, go to Images and Media, and drag and drop an image view, placing it way up there at the top, so that the align parent left and align parent top are set to true. I'll add an image, it doesn't matter which one, just so I have something to look at in the visual layout. Then I'll also add a text view. I'll choose the large version. Don't worry too much about where this is being placed, because I'll show you the exact properties you need in the code. Now I'll go back to the XML view. Setting the sizes and positions of the objects within the layout will require some experimentation, but for this exercise, I'll give you some exact dimensions. I'll start by setting the layout width and height to 80 dp each. I already have my alignment settings, and I'll also add some margins. I'll set margin top to 10 dp and margin bottom to 10 dp. Now I'll make some adjustments to the text view. The width and height can remain at wrap content, and if this appears in your code, remove it. Align parent top isn't needed. And I'll set the margin left value to 10 dp. The to right of attribute means that this text view will appear to the right of the image view. And I'll also add an attribute called center vertical and set it to a value of true. And that'll cause the text to appear in the vertical center of the row. Because I chose a text view that was large, I have a text appearance attribute that's pointing to an attribute that's already a part of the SDK. So that's my custom layout for each item. The next step is to create an adapter class. In the original code, I used a class called ArrayAdapter, which contained instances of the flower class. I'm going to create a subclass of that class and add some custom code to it. So I'll go to my base package and create a new class, and I'll name this FlowerAdapter. I'll set the superclass to ArrayAdapter. The superclass declaration will have the uppercase T to indicate the position of the generic declaration. That's where you say what type of data the ArrayAdapter will contain. I'll fix that in the code in a moment, so I'll just click Finish. Now I'll place the cursor right here and get rid of the T and replace it with flower, and make sure that I add the import for that class. Notice that there's an error here, and it tells me that I need to add a constructor. There's a few different ways of doing this. I'll choose the last one, where I pass in the context, an integer for a resource ID, and a list of flower objects. Now, as the adapter is created, I'll receive the context, that's the activity that's using it, the resource ID, and the list of data. I'm going to save references to the context and the data so that it persists for the lifetime of the adapter. So I'll copy this declaration, and I'll paste it up here and make that private, and then I'll do the same thing with the list. I'll copy it and paste it and make it private to the adapter. Then, as the constructor method is called, I'll save those references to the fields I just created with this.context equals context and this.objects equals objects. Now, the adapter will be attached to the list, but as the list scrolls up and down, it'll be up to the list widget to ask for a view to present an individual flower. Each time that happens, a method named getView will be called, and it's up to you to override that method and provide your own custom code. I'll place the cursor after the constructor method and type getView and press Control Space. And I'll select the method from the list. Each time this method is called, I'll receive a position. As I showed in a previous exercise, you can use that value to find out which data object is being requested. So I'll remove the comment, and I'll declare a flower object, which I'll name flower, and I'll get its reference from my list with objects.get, and I'll pass in the position argument. And now I know what data I'm supposed to present. The next step is to create the view object, and this is going to be an instance of the layout that I just created. That's the custom layout that's presenting an image and a text view. You do this with a class named LayoutInflator. I'll type the name of the class and make sure I've imported it, and I'll name it Inflator. And I'll get its reference by calling a method named getSystemService. This is a method of the context class, and this is why I saved a reference to the current context here. Now I'm going to use it to get the inflator object with context.getSystemService, and now I need a string that indicates what kind of service I want. This will be a constant of the activity class, named LayoutInflatorService. GetSystemService can return a number of different items, but I know I need a layout inflator, so I'll use a quick fix and add the casting to this syntax. I'll wrap this code a bit so that it's all visible. So now I have the inflator object and I'm ready to create the view. I'll declare an instance of the view class and I'll name it view, and I'll get that value by calling inflator.inflate, and I'll pass in the ID of my list item layout with r.layout.itemFlower. You can leave the root null. You don't need that argument. So now I have a view object, which is the layout, and I can start filling in its data. First, I'll deal with the image view. I'll declare an instance of the image view widget and add the import. I'll name it image, and I'll need to call the findViewById method, but right now I'm not in an activity, so I need to say where I'm getting that findViewById method. And I'll do it from the view object with view.findViewById, and I'll pass in the ID of my image view with r.id.imageView1. Then I'll set the image resource with image.setImageResource, and now I'll use that flower object and get its image resource and pass it in with flower.imageResource. I forgot to add the casting to the findViewById method, so I'll move the cursor up one line and use a quick fix and add the cast to image view. Next, I'll handle the text view. I'll create an instance of the text view class named TV. Once again, I'll call findViewById from the view object, and I'll pass in r.id.textView1. That's the ID of the text view in the layout, and I'll cast it with a quick fix. And then I'll set the text value of the text view object with tv.setText, and I'll pass in flower.flowerName. Finally, at the end of all this code, I'll say return the view object that I just created. So now each time this method is called, the code will create an instance of the layout for the item, it'll populate the layout's objects with values, the image resource and the text value, and it'll return the new view object. And that's the end of the work on the adapter. Finally, we'll come back to the main activity class. You won't need this code that's creating the instance of the array adapter. Instead, create an instance of your new custom adapter, flower adapter. Instantiate it with the adapter's constructor method. Pass in this. You can pass in anything for the resource. I'll pass in the reference to the layout, even though I won't be using it again in the adapter class. And then I'll pass in flowers for my data object. This is the array list that contains instances of the flower class. I'll clean up my imports. I no longer need my array adapter to be imported. And I'll save and run the application. Now when the app appears, each of the rows has the image and the text view. I haven't changed anything about how I'm handling clicks, so all that code still works exactly like it did before. I can still select items from the list. I can add them to the cart and get the message. And now I'm customizing the appearance of my app both in the list and the detail activity. So that's a great start at how to work with data in an Android app. The list activity is a great way to display a list of information, and you'll be passing data back and forth between activities by using intents and extras.